Brilliant. Okay, Vicky, if I can hand over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for coming. We're very pleased and proud to support and present these events for International Women's Day. We have a programme of events that we run throughout the month, from International Day of International Women and Girls in STEM right through to the end of International Women's Day and a week after that. The IDEA programme is an initiative which promotes diversity and addresses inequality in entrepreneurship. We provide support, resources and mentorship to early stage women entrepreneurs from both the university and to the wider Oxfordshire community. Through the programmes and community we provide, we hope to empower individuals who may face barriers to entrepreneurship and the skills to overcome those barriers. We have a range of events throughout the year, such as panel talks, workshops and Pitch the Pub events, offering opportunities for individuals to learn from experts and make a nice community and connect with each other. Next week on March 14th, we're holding an idea book club. This is a new idea. We're going to discuss the first chapter of the book, Invisible Women. We've got a few spaces left. And if you'd like to attend, send an email. I'll put the email address in the chat so we can sign you up. That'll be at the Royal Oak Pub, and it's going to be led by Professor Abigail Williams, who's Professor of Literature here at the university. And on March 15th, we've got another Pitch at the Pub. It's going to feature 4 female founders, and actually Jo, who's talking today, presented at that last year first. Again, everyone's welcome to attend, and I'll put the link to sign up for that in the chat shortly. And thank you to Jane and all our brilliant speakers. I'm really excited to be here and take part in this event. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Victoria. Happy International Women's Day. So my name is Jane, and I will be hosting the panel session today. I currently work as an investment associate at the Tech Transfer Office for the University of Oxford. So mainly we work closely with our portfolio companies throughout their commercialization journey, and one of them is getting investments. So the fundraising process might just be the most painful and time-consuming part of a founder's entrepreneurship journey. So today we will be hoping to hear a little bit more about these experiences that these women founders are facing. And I'll just jump straight into it, actually. So I'll go to Jo first. Jo, could you tell us a little bit about Luna and how you came about founding it? And both you and your co-founders are both women. You know, what was that fundraising experience like for you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Jo. I'm, as Jane said, co-founder of Luna, and we are the UK's first teen health and wellbeing app, specifically for girls, non-binary teens, anyone assigned female at birth, aged 11 to 18 years old. So we have an app that has a whole host of content created by medical professionals, and it teaches you everything you need to know basically about growing up. So everything from periods and hormones all the way through to stress, sleep, anxiety, relationships, exam stress, all of those kind of topics that interest you as a teenager. And instead of going to TikTok and watching rogue videos of people giving you some crazy advice on how to stop your period, we're trying to encourage teenagers to come to Luna, read and learn from our experts, and also we provide a safe space for them to ask questions in an anonymous way, and every answer is answered by a medical professional. So we launched Luna on the app stores back in November 2022, so we're quite new. But Jazz and I, so Jazz, my co-founder, we've been working on this since September 2021. So it actually took us a full year to get from basically idea, all the market research, do the funding, all the way through to building the app and having it launched on the App Store. Jazz and I actually met when we went back to Oxford to the university to do our MBA at Said Business School. And that was where the idea came from. And basically from there, we graduated in September and decided to quit our corporate careers and take the leap into entrepreneurship and run with the idea of Luna. And here we are today with 10,000 users on the platform. We have a team of 6 of us now and a medical community of 23 at the moment who create all of our content for us. So yeah, just very briefly about our fundraising process. Actually, back in September 21, we won a grant. It was for £20,000, and that really helped us to kind of springboard our idea. So having just been to business school, which I don't know if you know, is a very expensive process. We were very broke at the end of it. So we didn't really have the cash ourselves to kind of pour into the business. So thankfully we won a grant, which allowed us to do lots of market research and actually build a very basic first version of the app, which I did by watching lots of YouTube videos late into the night, which I've never coded an app before, but I managed to do it. And then that basically allowed us to do a bigger fundraise. So we did a pre-seed round this time last year, actually, and we raised £600,000, and that was through a mix of high net worth individuals, business angels, and then a couple of UK venture firms as well. So that was great, allowed us to launch the app and get our MVP out there, and we are now going again. So please all cross your fingers for us and say some prayers, because we're about to go into the hellhole of a fundraising process again, this time for our seed round. So it will be for a larger amount. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at now. So actually prepping all of the documents, all the pitch deck and financial model and all the other horrible things that go along with it. So yeah, that's Luna.
It is a lot of work that goes into a single fundraising process, and throughout an entrepreneurship journey, you have to have some sort of like constant fundraising to grow and scale your startup as well, right? Yeah. So, well, Mel, I'll come to you because you come from a university spin out. Tell us a little bit more about Quantum Dice and your fundraising journey.
Sure, happy to. Well, hi everyone, thanks for having me here today. As Jay mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of Quantum Dice. We are a spin-out from the physics department here in Oxford, and we are really protecting our connected future by enabling cybersecurity through a quantum random number generator. So a bit about myself. I did my undergraduate master's in chemistry here in Oxford between 2015 and 2019. And I actually took part in the university's first student entrepreneurs program, which was where I met my Quantum Dice co-founders in my last time at university. And I know I come from a science background, and not necessarily the structures were in place around the time to enable undergrad students to form their own companies, but the student entrepreneurs program that Oxford University Innovation and Oxford Science Enterprises ran really gave myself and my co-founders the chance to, develop a business plan around a piece of IP that the university already owned, and to pitch to some investors for some initial funding to allow us to develop our prototype. So for me, the transition into entrepreneurship was really much helped and facilitated by the university. I don't think that Quantum Dice would really be here today if it wasn't for the Step Ignite program that was first launched back in 2019. And the university has always been quite supportive of us on our entrepreneurial journey ever since. So since the summer of 2019, we've managed to do 2 rounds of fundraising for Quantum Dice. We raised an initial pre-seed round of $1 million from venture capital firms in the UK and also in Europe, as well as $1 million from Innovate UK, which also gave similar grant funding. So similar to what Joe was referring to earlier, having that initial publicly funded grant funding really allowed us to have the time and the resources to build our first product and to do a bit more market research and also market analysis, which then helped us bring on board the institutional venture capital firms. And since then, we're currently at a headcount of 14, also actively hiring for roles both on the commercial front as well as the technology development front. We're still based in Oxford, so we're currently at the Oxford Centre for Innovation, which is actually quite a good hub in Oxford where a lot of university spin-outs first moved to when they first raised their pre-seed. And in terms of our fundraising journey, we'll be looking to raise a second round, so a larger seed round, in the second half of this year. And I think I very much echo what has been said already in terms of the energy that it takes to fundraise. It's very much a more than full-time process. But I think that my own personal journey has been really rewarding and quite helpful because I've had the support and have been able to work very closely alongside my 4 other co-founders. So George, Rami, Jeanette, and Marco throughout the past few years. And in terms of females in entrepreneurship, within our company, we are reaching gender parity at the board level. I think 2 out of the 5 co-founders are females. And right now we're really trying to work with other quantum startups or quantum focused institutions such as the National Quantum Computing Centre around the Oxfordshire area to really proactively promote gender balance within the quantum ecosystem here in Oxfordshire.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Romeo, because I was actually gonna ask, like, is the quantum space like a very male-dominated industry, or do you think that's generally a good gender balance within the whole industry? Because I know Quantum Dice is quite diverse itself.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think diversity probably comes in many forms. In terms of gender diversity, I'd say within our company at least is pretty much still quite male dominated. But this is something that we would actively seek to improve or to work on by bringing very talented individuals into technical and also the more marketing and also sales focused roles in quantum. But I would have to say for the UK quantum technologies industry in general is very much still a nascent industry. So a lot of the companies are startups or SMEs themselves going through kind of pre-seed to later seed stage funding. So when we go to conferences, it's a small network and we do see quite familiar faces. I do have to kind of give a shout out to a few kind of female-led quantum tech companies. So there's Oxford Quantum Circuits led by Ilana Wisby, also another Oxford spin-out. They've just raised an incredible Series A and they're really pioneering the field of quantum computing. And there's also a company called Quantopticon, which was founded by a mother and daughter duo, originally based in Bristol, both female-led, are very strong in terms of the academic and the science behind it, and are also at the moment making a name for themselves in the US as well.
Thanks, Wenmeo. There's a lot of insights into the quantum world. So we'll go a little bit outside of that. I'll come to Yasmin. Yasmin, would you like to share with us a little bit about Align events? And if you've ever needed any funding at all up till now?
Thanks, Jane. Hi, I'm Yaz. I am the founder and director of Align Events. So Align Events is a non-alcoholic mobile cocktail bar service. And we also offer masterclasses, we do catering, and then we partner with other local growers so that we keep the food chain really local and also as organic and like harm-free as possible. So I came up with the idea literally in February 2022, registered the company in March 2022. So we have been going for just over a year now, absolutely zero funding to date. So I'm sure the ladies on this call are aware that 6% of investment funding goes to female founders, while 0.04% goes to Black female founders. So those are the kind of barriers that I'm facing as a solo Black female entrepreneur. However, we move. So have been bootstrapping whilst working 2 separate jobs. We have not made that much money because everything's been going into startup costs, but I am still applying for grants, applying for competitions. And I think there's positives and negatives towards bootstrapping, because I would really, a mentor of mine said, if you can bootstrap as long as possible, actually you get to retain, your business, you get to retain your autonomy. So I want to keep going down that journey as long as is possible. We may have to take investment, but I'll just see where that journey goes. But it's really interesting speaking to the other ladies on this call, especially the tech founders. And I'm wondering, do you think that there is more funding available for tech founders as opposed to service businesses or other kind of traditional cash service businesses?
So Yasmin, that's a good question. I'll come back to that question and open up to the floor. But before that, I want to introduce Helen first.
Sorry, Helen.
No, that's okay. Helen, would you like to tell us a little bit about House of and
Yeah.
how you started in the industry and what your fundraising journey has been? And then we'll go back to Yasmin's question.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Helen. I'm from House of, and House of is a lighting company, and we are marketing ourselves as a climate-friendly lighting company because we have these big ambitions to make every light in the world climate-friendly, because what a step change that would be in terms of the climate journey. So we're a carbon neutral business, and it was founded by myself and my co-founder Michael in 2019. So we've been going about 4 years now in terms of trading. I have a background in product design, so I was a buyer at Made.com and head of buying at VHS as well. And we produce really high quality, but also very on-trend lighting. We want being green and making environmentally conscious decisions to be easy for the consumer and for it not to be a compromise. So it's really important that our products also look really cool, as well as having kind of environmental credentials with them. We have a massive passion for homewares. We've been featured in Elle Decoration and The Stylist and things like Living, etc. as well. And yeah, we've won awards with our product design as well, which is really great. And it has been a really great journey with lots of highs and lots of things to celebrate. All of our lights are designed in Hackney. We have a London office with just a team of 6 people, so a really small team still, but we've managed to turn over about £3 million, and we have partnerships with H&M, John Lewis, and soon to be selling in Habitat as well. We also sell across 11 other countries in Europe as well. So with such a small team, we're taking on quite a huge workload at the moment. In terms of our kind of fundraising journey, I would say we're kind of in the middle between kind of bootstrapping the business and also being on a funding journey as well. We've really tried to do the same as Yaz, as bootstrapping as much as possible, because actually it gives us a real hunger to spend money consciously and not take on too much investment and grow too dramatically. So to date, we've raised 1.6 million, and we've raised it from a massive mixture of places. So we have gone to private investors, so private equity. We've put our own money, a lot of our own money in it, remortgaged houses and things like that. We've had government-backed loans as well through things like the COVID business interruption loan, which was actually a really good source of getting a government-backed loan during COVID-19, when we really struggled to get hold of stock and things like that. And then we also crowdfunded just at the end of last year. We crowdfunded via Seedrs and managed to raise about 250,000 via that as well, which has been our biggest kind of equity kind of injection in the last couple of years. And what we want to do with that is grow the business in a really healthy way. We've got it into a really good profitable position where we can now scale and plow our money into marketing and really pushing it into the wider audience.
It's really interesting how it shows us that, fundraising, you not only need to go to, your typical VCs or angel investing, you've got a wide range of investment sources that you can actually tap into.
Yeah.
I really like your light in your background, by the way. Is that one of House Of's lighting?
There's always one.
Yeah. So going back to Yasmin's question, does any of you want to answer that? Do tech companies get more investment?
Oh, I could jump in and share my thoughts on that. So I've only ever really fundraised for Quantum Dice, which is a tech company, but it's also a hardware tech company. So I think maybe my experiences of fundraising would be quite different to Jo and her co-founders. But from my experience, I think generally in hardware tech, there's a very limited pool of VC firms who want to invest in hardware tech because of the timelines to get to products and the timelines in between different product iterations. So to give you an idea, we launched our first 2 commercial products this year, and our company started in 2019. So it does take quite a few years, and it's very capital intensive, which is why I think for companies such as ours, we need to get whether grant or kind of private funding as soon as possible to really be able to hire the employees, but also hire spaces and also buy the equipment that we need to develop our product. But I think that kind of going through the fundraising journey just generally is really about finding the right source of investment for you to help you achieve your particular company goals at that stage in time. Which is why I think earlier when Helen was talking about bootstrapping, etc., that's great, because then if you can demonstrate revenue, then that helps you later on when it comes to negotiation on VC terms as well. But I think generally for hardware tech companies, we're mostly funded through VC private investments, as well as a lot of Innovate UK kind of early stage R&D funds, which is non-equity, but it helps to de-risk the equity investments from the VCs.
Yeah, interesting. So I guess Yasmin also briefly, touched on how women founders are severely underfunded, and even more so for Black women. So I've got some stats here if you want to have a listen. So according to some reports, women-led startups receive 2.3% of all VC investments in 2020. And currently only 12% of decision makers at VC firms. So I'm just looking at, the venture capital side of investment. So only 12% of decision makers at VC firms are women. So this does not include the analysts and associates like me. So there is a lot of female investors in the early career stage, but hopefully that would translate directly to them having a more advanced career within VC. So people have been advocating for, having more women in VC, because it's shown that women investors are more likely to support women founders. Do you guys have any investors who are women who's invested in your company?
Yeah, I do. So one of our lead investors, actually, who is a UK VC fund, very well known. They have a first check fund, which is run by 2 women, Maria and Kirsten, and they are incredible. And to be honest, they are probably our most helpful of investors, in terms of we can pick up the phone to them at any time. We've got a WhatsApp group with them, and yeah, just super knowledgeable, super helpful, and always at the end of the phone. Obviously, all we've got, I would say this, I'm biased, but I think our cap table is great. We've got some really cool angels on there as well, but definitely, yeah, Maria and Kirsten, and they work for a fund as part of a larger UK VC. So yeah, interesting. But on our pre-seed, we spoke to so many funds, like so many angels as well, but so many funds, and we hardly came across many women at all, actually, even at the sort of associate level as well. So hopefully that's kind of changed over the past year or so, maybe, and this time around when we go out, we will get to speak to some more women. But yeah, I'd have to definitely give a shout out to Maria and Kirsten.
That's really good to hear that, you've built yourself like that little community of having female investors on board. I guess like people might be interested in how you reach out to these investors, or do you specifically choose your investors?
Yeah, so we were very specific, I suppose, when we first started, and we had an idea in mind that we wanted to have quite a heavy female cap table, obviously because we had 2 female co-founders, but also the product and the service that we offer is also directed mainly towards girls and females. So yeah, we did, but obviously we kind of had to open our own kind of addresses books to begin with. So we went back to our old bosses, actually, to begin with, and asked if they wanted to do like an angel round, and then it sort of just spreads from there. You have to obviously put a lot of outreach. We did a lot of LinkedIn stalking, like a lot, literally hundreds of emails, and they were all personalized. And obviously as well, when it's LinkedIn, you're not connected with them, you only get that tiny little box to 200 characters or something. So we had to really like be specific in that message. And I think we sent about 215 messages over Easter weekend last year on LinkedIn, and we got 3 responses and 1 of them went to invest. So not a great hit rate, but he was then super helpful at introducing us to other angels that he knew and other networks that he was in. So so yeah, long process, very laborious as well, just copy and paste and searching for people on LinkedIn. But it worked to the point that we got 1 investment out of it, and then introductions to others as well. And yeah, I think as well, especially in the VC and the angel community, actually, they do talk a lot to each other. So you think that like one VC would just keep themselves to themselves. But my word, it was amazing. Like once one VC heard of us, we had so many emails from people saying, oh, it'd be great to chat, even if they weren't even in our vertical, they weren't going to invest this early, they didn't do pre-seed, but they just all love to kind of get in and chat. So I would say for anyone going through that process, my advice is kind of only to start the fundraising process when you are really, really ready for it, because once you send out one pitch deck, it's amazing how far it gets without you even having to kind of send it on. It's people sending it on and sending it on and sending it on. And then before you know it, you've got inbound mail from all of these VCs who don't go on to invest. Well, they didn't with us anyway, but it's a funny process kind of how it works.
Yeah, we definitely do have a WhatsApp chat group that we share decks all the time, and it's all about that relationship building, right? Like, because they want to get in early, they want to know you, they want to know the team. So yeah, I'm interested to hear from Helen. So Helen, you've been in your industry for a long time, so you've had that relationship building already. Has that been easier for you as an entrepreneur, do you think?
Actually, to be honest, in terms of my network, we had very few people invest from my specific network in terms of retail. I mean, retail in the middle management level is very heavily female dominated. I'm actually really lucky to have had a career in an industry that I've never really felt too excluded, or kind of, it's been really supportive as a community. When you get up to the higher levels of retail, it's obviously all board members are male. You don't really see a huge amount of people very inclusive at all. It's just, it's not very diverse. It's all kind of middle-aged white men, which I think you can see across the industry. I mean, you've got Philip Green that I work for, you've got Mike Ashley that's buying up every single company at the moment, and even the MD of Next and people like that. Everybody seems to be male in the top levels. So not a huge amount of investment came from my retail network. We obviously did the crowdfunding through Seedrs, and when we approached Seedrs at first, we were thinking, okay, well, we can tap into their amazing network of investors, but actually only 20% of the investment ends up coming from the Seedrs network and people that you don't know. 80% of your funding when you're crowdfunding is coming from people that you do know, people that you've got connections with, people that you're cold emailing as well. So you do, as we've been saying, like, fundraising is a massive job. It's actually like both of our full-time jobs at the back end of last year, and it really takes you away from the running of the company as well. So you've got to make sure the company is in a really good place, that you've got a team that you can trust to keep running the company in the background whilst you go off and find the fundraising, because it is all consuming and it is labor intensive. Like Joe was saying, we had email lists of 200 people and you're getting one response back, but actually where we had the best response is people offering us advice as well. So it wasn't necessarily that they were willing to invest right now, but we've created a relationship with them that we've asked for them for advice on our pitch deck, on our pitches that we were doing, and actually now we've got that relationship with them, so that in a year's time, when they are willing to invest in a retail company, they will think of us and they'll see the success rate and how far we've come since we first pitched to them. It's a really labor intensive process, and actually I think what we've learned and reflected on is fundraise when you're not ready for it, like fundraise when you don't need the money because actually it takes way longer than you think it's going to take. We were really plucky and said, right, we will be able to do this in 6 months, but actually I think we've been fundraising solidly for about 2 years now, and it gets scary because you're kind of seeing the cash go down, and as the cash is running out as well, you're becoming less of an investment prospective investor because your cash run rate isn't great. So being investment savvy when you're in a really good position, when sales are really good, and when your cash in the bank is really good, is one of the things that I took away from the journey in terms of the most important thing to learn. So we've just finished one round and now we're thinking about our next round already.
Yeah.
Even if we don't necessarily need it now.
Yeah. You always have to plan 2 years ahead.
Yeah.
You've got to think ahead. Yeah,
Definitely.
interesting. So Yasmin, you actually donate 6% of your profits to each event that you do to Alcohol
Yes.
Change UK. Do
Yes.
you want to elaborate on that?
Sure, absolutely. So it's a purposeful business, Align Events, because I don't drink. I haven't drunk for 7 years, and I'm in recovery. And so it's really important that the business gives something back to help other people in the same position. So there's a charity that I support called Alcohol Change UK, and they are the leading charity in the UK that supports not just people in recovery, but grey area drinking, mindful drinking. They have resources. They actually are lobbying the government at the moment to put some clearer guidance around definitions of no and low alcohol, which is really important for religious non-drinkers. So quite a few of my clients are religious non-drinkers, and there's a bit of confusion about products labeled no alcohol, because that can include products up to 0.5%, but that actually isn't safe for certain demographics of non-drinkers to drink. So as you can hear, everyone, sorry to bore you, but I'm really passionate about the industry, and I'm really passionate about the business, which is obviously why I did it and decided to take a massive risk and just throw everything in. And so campaigns like, I'm guessing everyone's heard of Dry January. That was run by Alcohol Change UK. So that's trademarked by them. So one of the other ways that we support them is for this Dry January, my company threw like a big event for them. We had the bar, it was a ticketed event. We ran masterclasses, and we got a lot of the other non-alcoholic products involved. So I think, yes, it's important to make money in our businesses, obviously, but it's really important to show a purposeful, as well for me, an environmental impact. Otherwise, we're just making money and we're not giving anything back to society.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I think nowadays, like ESG and the UN SDG goals are like a hot topic, and there are investors that look out for companies that specifically do impact investing and stuff like that. So I think, Helen, you've got quite a big climate commitment in your company.
Yeah, so obviously my background's always been in buying, and it's always been in stuff and designing things that are desirable for people, that you want people to buy. And obviously I'm in the consumerism industry, and there was a lot of guilt that I had around that in the kind of end of my career with these big retailers, especially when I was with somebody like BHS, which is all about selling low and driving volume. So producing things and more things, putting them into the world, and over consumerism is something that was really playing on my mind. So When we first started the business, we were thinking about how we can really tackle this, because our background is in product. Michael is a website designer as well, so the two expertise coming together made sense. But actually we really wanted to tackle like how we can put a product into the world but actually make a difference with it. So our ambitions are crazy. We want every light in the world to be climate neutral, but we feel like that would make such a big impact in terms of the environmental stance and kind of challenging other companies to really think about how they're producing their lighting as well. We've always said we want other companies to copy us. So if they see our roadmap and they see our footprint and they can see how we're doing it, then we want them to copy us and show that if we all work together, we can kind of get to the same goal. So it's not necessarily about us producing billions of lights a year. Like, that's not where we think or we have any desire to get to. It is more about changing the way that people think about their energy and thinking about their products. So environmental products sometimes have kind of a bit of a dowdy image. In the past, I would compare it to like the bamboo toothbrush and things like that. We want it to be something that's really desirable, that you want in your home. And also the benefit is that you can use that for 10 years and you're not emitting any extra carbon emissions into the atmosphere. So we kind of started off our journey in making sure when we were designing the product, we were producing it in the most carbon neutral way possible. We worked a lot with our factory. We've done huge audits on our factory to produce the least amount of emissions that we can, and then we offset the rest. We also have completely plastic-free product packaging, which is genuinely something that was so hard to get to, because obviously a lot of our product is glass. And it has to go through the postal system in the UK and the EU, and it gets chucked around by DHL and and things like that. So that was a really big challenge. And actually we were probably one of the first retailers to take not to have plastic in our packaging, because it was traditionally polystyrene filled boxes, and we started off with completely recyclable packaging. And we found that companies like Made.com and Next then started following suit, because we produce in kind of really similar ways. So, and they were copying us, which is great. And I think actually, please copy us, please do more of this. We'll show you our workings, we'll show you how to do it, because actually we want everybody to work together to get to this amazing goal. So yeah, it's really important. I think we were talking the other day about whether or not it's important to investors as well, weren't we?
Yeah.
And it has definitely been like a differentiating factor to investors within like our pitches. So having that point of difference to your competitors has been quite important, because they want to see that you've got a USP. But they're thinking about it in a very different way. I don't think they're necessarily thinking about it from the point of like you're trying to save the planet. They're thinking about it as a point of like, oh, it's a differentiating factor for the consumer to come and buy with you over your competitors, which we're really conscious of. We don't want it to be a marketing ploy. We don't want it to be we actually shied away a long time from talking about it, because we didn't want it to be something that was a marketing ploy. We wanted it to just be done because it was the right thing to do. So I think some investors are savvy to it, and some will look for environmentally conscious businesses and socially conscious businesses. But I think still, annoyingly, the mass population of, I don't know if anyone else has had any different experiences, but it hasn't necessarily been something that's on their tick list that they go, okay, well, you've picked that one.
Do you think there are not many impact investors then that are genuinely interested in the environment?
Not in our field. So obviously there's lots of other fields like tech and there's lots of energy fields and things like that. But I would say in retail, when you're looking at a retail investor, and we like to get investors from the field that we're in, because they provide great expertise and advice, and actually just having them understand the industry is really important to us when we look at an investor. I would say in retail, it's not necessarily the focus, because it's consumerism. You want to create a product that's desirable and mass produced. So there is this massive kind of disparity in terms of what the investor wants and what you can actually do.
Yeah, interesting you touch on that. Like what specifically do you think the investors value add to your company?
So we have always looked for people that we can use as advisors. So one of our lead investors is a really powerful woman in her industry, and she offers so much in terms of mentoring for me, and also mentoring for my co-founder as well. Really great with saying we have WhatsApp groups and we're able to contact her really quickly. So that's great. She's also got a really big network of other women investors that she can tap into, but it's always really sensitive when they're sharing their contacts. They don't do it, obviously they don't do it willingly necessarily. And actually from that we've got other investors in our crowdfunding round which have come on and they've offered to mentor me, and it's I think it is about being supportive. We want our investors to feel like they are part of the company and they're really driving the company forward as well, if they want to be. It's not a caveat. You don't have to get involved if you don't want to, but we would love you to. We would love the feedback. I think that's what's going to make the business better.
Yeah, it's good to hear that, there are women investors out there, like from both in Luna and in House of, that supports the businesses that they actually invest in. So Jo, your business is kind of like a very mission-led one as well.
Yeah, definitely. We are mission-led, and the very sort of reason why we started the company in the first place. I do think there are perhaps more impact investors maybe in the tech space, because we have come across a few who kind of their whole thesis and investment thesis is in specific has a specific impact focus, and so all of their then portfolio is kind of aligned to that. And yeah, I think sort of similarly to what Helen was saying, these are useful investors in that sense, because then they have the connections, they have other portco companies that they can kind of share ideas with, because I think there are like specific challenges, I suppose, around being more impact led, impact focused. And yeah, definitely like all of the sort of UN goals, with fairer education and access to education for girls, that's definitely up high on our list as well. So yeah, hopefully in this sort of next round we will be like making a focus on investors and funds that support female founders, but also ones that support impact and mission-led businesses.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned you're fundraising at the moment, so you're probably doing a lot of pitching to many different people. And I did see you pitch at the Oxford Side Business School last year, where Luna actually won the Best Pitch Award. Do you have any tips for pitching at all?
Yeah, I feel like we've done our fair share of pitching, especially over this past year, and I'm sure we'll go and do loads more in these next few weeks. And I suppose my main tips and takeaway for anyone doing pitching is really keep it as succinct as possible. So the OSEF pitch was actually one of the longer ones that we did. So that was a 5-minute one, and then you get invited to do another pitch day, and that's a 4-minute pitch, and then another pitch day is a 2-minute pitch. So you kind of have to flex your pitch, obviously, to meet their timings, but also to have the same level of impact, because how do you fit in 2 minutes what in a previous pitch you said in 5 minutes? And I always like to start, maybe it's a bit of a cliche, but I always like to start with something quite impactful, something to get the audience sort of catch you off guard, not the kind of, hi, my name's Jo, I'm from Luna, da 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 da. We always like to start our pitch with either some really hard-hitting stats that we've got. I think in the OSEF one, I made everyone in the audience stand up, and I said, can everyone stand up, please? Obviously, if you're able to. And I think people were quite shocked at that. They were expecting me to come on and go, hi, my name's Jo, I'm from Luna, this is what we do. And then sort of, spent probably about 45 seconds of the 5 minutes actually going through this scenario of, if you know a teenager, please stay standing up. If you know this stat, please stay standing up, and then you kind of hit them with like a big impactful statement at the end. And I think just having that different start often gets people's attention and is just something a bit different, because especially investors on fundraising calls, and all of ours to date have actually been on Zoom in terms of when we were actually fundraising last year. If it's not a competition, they were all on Zoom, and it's very difficult because to catch their attention, because usually investors are probably on back-to-back calls, all day listening to different pitches, and everyone will usually start in the same way, like, hi, I'm Joe, I'm Jazz. So I suppose that would be my one sort of big tip, is to just do something a bit crazy, because it makes it a bit more fun for people listening and investors as well. And yeah, I think that sort of helped with the seal the win at OSEF last year.
I think I definitely remember that. It was very very memorable. That's why I remember you from the
Thanks.
pitches pitch. It was really good. I'll come to Wenmiao. So Wenmiao, I always see you as like, the face of Quantum Dice, because I've seen you spoken at multiple types of events, panel discussions, but I've actually never seen you pitch. Do you do the pitching for Quantum Dice?
I do, yeah. So I think when we did our first fundraise, I think myself and one of my co-founders, Rami, split it between us. And it actually became quite fun after a while, because I think once we became comfortable with the pitch, then we can kind of just subtly adapt it to the audience. But I completely agree with what Joe said earlier about, trying to start off with something that's a bit different to almost wake your audience up and capture all of their interest. And I think generally in terms of pitching to investors, we found that different investors from different geographies would expect to see pitches a bit differently. So for example, when we were pitching to UK-based investors, we had to structure our deck and also our contents in a slightly different way to say when we were pitching to investors from Asia or from the US. But I think generally it's to be as succinct as possible, really hit the points that your particular investors care about. So for VC firms, it's normally about, what problem are you solving? How big is the market? What traction do you have? Who is your team? Whereas I think sometimes for the early stage angels, a lot of them are kind of individual investors, and they normally have had a lot of success in this particular industry, and they also want to take a more active role. So it's really kind of spending a bit more time getting to know each individual investor beforehand, before actually doing the full pitch and all the follow-up afterwards.
Interesting. Yeah. So I guess pitching might not be the pitching at like an event might not be the only point of time where you actually talk about your business, because you do a lot of like these kind of panel discussions as well. Like what kind of conversations do you get out of after these kind of discussions?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the event, but I remember I think we also took part in Pitch at the Pub last year as well. And I think that was a 3-minute pitch. Really liked the time frame for that, because it allowed, I guess, the audience to really hear and see hear pitches from a variety of different companies, and still have time to network and chat afterwards. But generally after these type of in-person events, it really then comes down to the one-to-one pitches or the more elevator style pitches. And the conversations can range from being, from a potentially interested investor who wants to know a bit more detail about commercial traction, or it could be about someone who is part of another network, who wants to connect this particular business with one of their existing networks. So it depends. And I think as founders, we probably live and breathe our business all day, every day. So I think over time, as the idea and as the concept of our business, our product or services solidify, when it becomes easier to communicate it to different types of audiences.
Yeah. Interesting. So Yasmin, I know you haven't done any fundraising, but I'm sure you have had to, pitch Align events to say clients to be like to convince them to use Align events. Like, how do you do that? Because you've got an amazing backstory.
I think just before I go on that, I will say one thing about interaction with investors. If anyone is feeling like, because I haven't pitched to investors, but they have been like sniffing around the business. So it's a really confusing, like a weird dating scenario where I'm like, what do you guys want? But they are hovering around to see the traction that the business gets before, and the ones that are just touching on purposeful business or impact investment, they are impact investors. So they are investors of colour. There are quite a few female investors of colour. So they are the ones that are hovering around the business. So I think if you do have a purposeful business, or you do have a business that has like massive ESG goals that you want to hit, like don't get disheartened, because it might take you a bit longer because they want to see the money come in before, but they are there, the investors. They're away and they will seek you out. Because I haven't, Jane, I didn't find these people, they found me. And actually they all came through LinkedIn. The same with the clients, they came to the business because the business feels a need. Where can you get non-alcoholic drinks in the Southeast and Oxfordshire? You can't, because the offering at the moment in hospitality is awful and you're treated as a second-class citizen. So that's why people are typing it into Google, and even though our SEO isn't that great at the moment, they know what they want and we are the service provider for that. So again, if your business really does fit the market need, yes, I need to work on the marketing, but even without the marketing, people are still seeking out the offer. I hope that answers the question.
That's really interesting, because like, you know, usually investors and people, they're drawn to things that they need the most, right? And if your business is like very aligned with that, they've just come to you. That's amazing to hear, actually. Yeah. So just to round things off, because I'm conscious of time, do you guys have anything that you're looking forward to in 2023 in terms of, like, you know, your startups and your business?
I can start and just say this fundraise. So we're at the very early stages, so we have that kind of initial excitement / naivety of like, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. Whereas we know sort of 2 months into it, we'll probably be tearing our hair out. But we are keeping a video diary, which we're going to then like edit together at the end to then hopefully have like quite a fun little video of us going through the highs and lows of, at the start being like, it's fine, this is going to be great, and then at the end just being absolutely dead on our feet. But yeah, hopefully if we can wrap up a really good seed round, then 2023 and 2024 will be really exciting and big years for Luna, as well as we grow across the UK and then eventually across the world.
Awesome. Looking forward to that video. Wen Miao?
Yeah, so I think what I'm looking forward to for most this year is actually growing the team at Quantum Dice, and really adding more functions into the company. So kind of branching out from the core engineers that we've had so far to kind of sales, biz dev and marketing, and really working with these profiles who come outside of Quantum to see how we can really help Quantum Dice grow as a brand, but also help develop the quantum technologies industry across the UK as well.
Great. Yasmin?
Just growing the business and also connecting with lots more local independents and especially Oxfordshire agri-tech producers, because I really want to get like a sustainable circular supply chain going within Oxfordshire. So that's really exciting.
And you've got a couple more panel discussions lined up as well, right?
Yes, Monday and Tuesday, and then the 13th, all alcohol free.
Always come in waves. Thanks, Yasmin. And Helen?
So this year is all about scaling for us. So we are launching in 5 new countries this month. We're doing new partnerships with big retailers, so that's really exciting. And trying to get to a really stable business position as well. The last few years, especially in the retail environment, not saying that this year is going to be any different because of the recession looming, but it has been really rocky. And actually this year has it looks much more stable out there for us in terms of our investment proposition, and also just the business being in a really healthy position. So we're not necessarily saying that we're going to grow kind of like do the hockey stick growth that every investor doesn't want to see, but growing in a really sustainable way and growing in a way that is manageable for our business. We're also on our B Corp journey, so we're kind of waiting for our B Corp certification. So that'll be really exciting if that comes through as well this year. So lots of exciting things. Just it'll be nice to be happy and celebrating the highs rather than commiserating the lows.
I'm sure towards the end we all only remember the good things that happens. Thank you all so much for sharing your fundraising journey and your entrepreneurship journey, and I'm sure there's lots of questions from the audience. I guess I'll pass it back to Rosie.
Hi, amazing discussion. Thank you so much. Brilliant questions, Jane, and really inspiring and insightful, and some great tips on pitching. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to ask directly. I just wanted to ask a question quickly around how you feel. I suppose it's that question about being a woman in this space. And do you feel that you've had to kind of use more male traits in pitches or your relationships with funders? Don't know whether anybody wants to answer that one.
No, you go, Helen, you go.
We were kind of having this discussion the other day. I think we've had really similar experiences on it. I think when you're looking for investment, and obviously you're pitching to a lot of men, you are often the only woman in the room as well. We recently went to an event at a big investment bank. I'm not going to name and shame them, but out of 100 people in the room, there were 4 women there, and the diversity level was just incredible how they got it so wrong in terms of the guest list that they invited. So I think as a founder, I've noticed the inequality more, especially recently. I think I've had lots of discussions with people that ask me what I do for a living, and I say I run a lighting business, and I think because I'm a woman, they assume that I'm running the business out of my bedroom. I've also had conversations with people like, oh, why can't you just put a container of stock in your garden? Well, I live in a 2-bed flat in London, and I've got £1 million worth of stock in a warehouse in Devon, so I don't think it's going to fit in my garden. But I think if from the other point of view, if somebody says that if they're male and they say they run a business, they do have a different perception of that. And I also get the well done you quite a bit in terms of running a business. So I think I've definitely noticed the inequality being a founder more than when I was in my regular job in retail, for sure.
Brilliant. Jo, how about you?
Yeah, so I was going to say, so when we did our fundraise last year, we were super naive to any of it really to do with even just trying to find investors and how about going about that process. And I think we sat through a lot of calls which actually perhaps if we were men, we would have either shut down earlier, or we would have just basically we had a lot of sort of rudeness, and similar to what Helen said, it was a bit like, oh, well, this is nice, well done you, like those kind of conversations. So we have decided this year that we are going to be more male, shall we say, in our approach to fundraising. And if we get any kind of comments like that, we are going to shut the call down straight away. We're going to take it more purposefully in terms of being actually, I don't want to say aggressive, but more, just not standing for it, basically, because we don't have to, because we know now that, well, we raised 600k from an amazing group of investors who didn't speak to us like that and don't speak to us like that, and actually appreciate that we are businesswomen, and that they are also proud to be investors in us, and they saw it as an opportunity for them as well, not just us being like, oh, please can we have your money kind of thing, which I think a lot of, well, some investors kind of perhaps feel like that when two quite young female founders come along. So no, we've decided this time that we're gonna, if we have any of those conversations where we just think it's going away from basically the point of the business, we're just gonna be like, no, sorry, thanks for the call, bye, and leave.
That's really interesting, and it must be quite tricky, because I'm assuming that you kind of are running your businesses and leading with kindness and in a more kind of empathetic, I would say, female way. So that must be quite a kind of tricky balance to be like, right, we're now switching into kind of like fundraising mode.
Yeah, exactly. And that is, so high up on our list of values is kindness and empathy to everyone, so within the team, but also our wider business, dealing with people who use our platform and our investors as well. So it definitely is, but I think to us, we just got so frustrated and so just tired by the end of the process of just sort of often being sort of taken for a bit of a ride, and had many comments which are just like, why do we need this? Why do girls need this kind of information? Like, surely they're fine. Like, and just not really understanding the product, but also not kind of making any attempt to really understand the market as well. And just, some comments such as like, are you sure that teenage girls spend money online? Don't they? I think they go to Boots. They go to Boots and Superdrug, don't they? They don't spend online. And you're like, are you, how? Really? Do you not know anything? Like, have you not done any kind of research on this? So kind of conversations like that got very frustrating after a few months of them. So yeah, we definitely, of course, still be kind and very empathetic, but if we get sort of taken down the garden path, shall we say, we're just going to stop the call, because it wastes everyone's time as well. Like, we had so many calls that we're just like, that's what a waste of our time that was at the end of it. Just like, so, and they're very draining.
I can imagine. Jane, just from your kind of experience and point of view in the investment space, do you still feel like it's quite bullish, like in terms of the atmosphere in the sector? How do you feel? Or do you feel like there's kind of new people coming through, like you and your kind of colleagues and peers? Do you feel like there's this kind of new wave of people kind of looking at doing differently?
So I think there's definitely a lot of conversations about having a more diverse investment panel in funds, and I know that a lot of women are usually in the I would say early career stage, like investment analyst positions. Hopefully that would translate up, but I have been to events where it's just all suits in London. But I mainly work within the university, so it's still pretty diverse gender-wise. So in the tech transfer sector, I would say it's pretty diverse. In the investment, it can definitely do with a bit more of a balance, but there are VCs that are run completely, all women on board sort of funds, and I have seen funds that specifically only invest in women founders, so at least one founder is a woman. And these are like VC funds as well as angel syndicate funds. So conversations are being had, and hopefully we'll see some change in the coming years. I don't know, I can't say how long, but it's changing slowly.
Good to hear. Excellent. Just going over to the chat, Helen from 93 Jobs, hi Helen, has asked, so she started her business in 2015, And she has a question for the panel, which is, how have you met any mentors that you work with? I know a few of you have mentioned some great investors that are also mentors, yeah, and I think Yasmin, you've got some mentors in your space as well. So yeah, it'd be good to know how you've kind of started those journeys, and did you seek them out, or was it vice versa? Who wants to kick off with that one? Yasmin, do you want to start on that one?
Sure. So I reached out to some of my mentors just on LinkedIn, or I was introduced to them. So I was on a London enterprise charity program, which was for diverse founders. And as part of that, mentors would come and they would give a talk. And there was always advice, reach out afterwards. So it's kind of, you just network through then, and then you find they've got friends who they recommend. So it's just through networks, really. And I found the ones that fit best for me, and the ones that, you know, the right mentor will want to help you succeed. Like, you won't have to chase them, because they'll always be checking in, like on your Telegram, like, what's up, girl? Like, are you doing this? Are you doing that? How's your tax account? Like, so that's what I would say. Utilize your networks, and then reach out on LinkedIn and just try and have relationship building, like coffees and teas or whatever.
Good advice. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I can completely agree with Yaz. I did my favorite thing of LinkedIn stalking everyone, and found people who I thought would be an interesting fit, as in not necessarily directly in our space. So one of our best mentors is Louise Hill, who's the co-founder and CEO of GoHenry, which is a financial education app for children. So sort of a similar space, in the fact that sort of her target audience are children and young people, but obviously in a completely different sector in terms of finance, and also completely different size. Like, they are massive. I think she's raised an incredible series, I think it's B, don't quote me on it, which was like 50 million or something like that. So kind of insane numbers what Louise is dealing with, but super helpful. And I actually heard her on a podcast, I can't remember which one it was, and then messaged her saying, great episode, like, learned so much. It was actually one of those helpful podcasts where people actually give practical tips and do this, do that, do this, do that kind of thing. So I just messaged her, and then we also happened to be attending a similar event, so I spoke to her then, and we kind of just went from there. Then sort of asked, would you be interested in helping us, and thankfully she was. So yeah, I would say I feel like all roads lead to LinkedIn, really. So
This isn't endorsed by LinkedIn anyway, but
yeah.
That's really interesting, and I think both in the consultancy space, and sorry, Helen, and across mentoring, there's it seems to be that networking is really key to that. I just wondered, how much time do you guys spend networking, whether it's to find kind of funding or mentors? Helen, did you want to?
Mine, yeah, I don't love networking. I'm very bad at networking. I would say I'm definitely an extrovert in terms of my personality type, but going up to somebody and starting a conversation with them is not necessarily my style. I have to kind of be pushed into it. I was going to say, actually, like, in terms of mentors are great, but what I've also found is contemporaries being really useful as well. So people that are in the same sort of field. We have this really amazing network of homewares founders. So we've found friends with people like Coat Paints and Mustard Made Lockers and Plank Hardware, and we have this amazing network of homeware brands that are going after the same customer, that are going after the same investors, that are going after the same agencies in terms of looking for the same resources. And what we're really good at is sharing it with each other and literally just giving each other contact details for retailers, contact details for investors, and not holding our cards close to our chest at all, and really helping each other, because what we found is that we're all doing exactly the same thing. So if we're all spending the time and money as well, in terms of like we're all spending massive budgets on marketing and Facebook and Google, like if we really pool our resources, and we're just going after the same people, after all, whoever's putting a light up in their house is probably painting the room at the same time. So actually what we found is contemporaries being really useful as well as mentors. So it's not necessarily looking for somebody that's got experience and is going to tell you from a top line level, but just going through the same experience as you is really, really helpful. And it's just made it feel such a less lonely journey, I would say.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with what you said there about having a network of kind of peers also running similar businesses or working in the same industry, etc. So I think from Quantum Dice's point of view, after the Oxford student program, we then went to a quantum tech network, which was based in Bristol, and that was a network set up specifically to help really early stage quantum technology startups. And through there, we met a lot of other founders who are now kind of running their own kind of pre-seed or seed stage quantum companies. And of course, because we all work in quantum and hardware quantum, we share a lot of similar investors as well. So we still have quite an active WhatsApp group, and that's good for just, sharing latest news, but also it's good to have that network to come back to when, as the business develops, we can say, hey, we're looking to recruit certain types of people. Would you know where we can go to find them? So it's just been really supportive. And of course, as a founder and going through different types of fundraising journeys, it's always difficult. So it's good to have people outside of your founder circle or outside of your immediate company to speak to about certain things as well. And then just kind of reflecting on mentorship, I think that's super important. And I think the mentor that's had the most impact on me personally was actually a director of the Quantum Technology Network. And I completely agree with the points earlier, which is about, good mentors, they will proactively seek to give you opportunities and to really push you. And these type of relationships really do form quite organically. And then Rosie, to your point earlier about, how much time do we spend networking? I think as founders, every meeting we have, we probably talk about our company, and it's a chance to network. But in terms of going to networking events or going to conferences, where my team and I have found the most success is actually to just try to have like a few number of really meaningful conversations, and really just invest time into building that personal relationship with them, instead of just trying to speak to as many people as possible and just really collecting a handful of business cards that don't really lead anywhere.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Brilliant. Helen has also asked around blind investment. So in the recruitment industry, you have blind recruitment. Is there a case for blind investment? And I think that kind of speaks to the theme for International Women's Day this year, which is embrace equity. I don't know whether any of you want to come in on this, and maybe Jane, you could.
Yeah, I can go first. So I know of like, so I think investment is a very like what we previously mentioned, it's built on relationships you have with the founding teams. So I think a lot of VCs, what we like to say is like it's like a marriage, right? Having an investment into a company is like a marriage. You actually sign legal documents for that and stuff, and investors usually have like a very long-term, especially in deep tech companies, a long-term investment and relationship with the founders of the companies. Having said that, I know of funds who refuse to accept pitch decks through warm introductions. So they only look at pitch decks that are submitted on their website. So I would say there is some form of blindness to it, because you don't base that on like someone's favor that you're giving to or something like that. But I guess blind investment would probably speak a lot to like how a investment firm structures their due diligence process. If they have like a structured set of questions that they ask every single companies that they actually do want to invest in. So then there's that kind of like fairness set across all the companies. So yeah, I'm not too sure about like, you know, not it being like a completely same process as blind recruitment, because like I say, you know, investments is a very lots of networking and lots of relationship building before writing that first check.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's kind of how do you build in more equity into this space without that?
Yeah, and I think like some VCs are trying to adopt like machine learning and AI behind like, you know, picking deck out so that it removes that human biasness in the first instance. But then after that, you know, of course, you know, you still have to have somebody from investments to actually review the deck and check that everything is correct. But I think, yeah, it's hopefully it will improve. but yeah.
Brilliant. So Vicky has just asked a question around what's missing locally, so in Oxford, in Oxfordshire, that you would like to see in the kind of investment space. Does anybody want to comment on that? Is there anything that you feel that you need in your business, the support that you need? Yes.
I would say there is a distinct lack of non-match funded grants being offered at the moment in Oxfordshire, and I have no idea why that's happening, because what you're doing is every single startup founder who has an idea, just a beautiful sprig of an idea, it's crushed instantly because they don't have the funds behind it. Every single founder, Oxford is a huge area, and traditionally the money is in certain places, with no shade, it's at the university, it's at big business. If you're from one of the more deprived areas, how do you get your idea to fruition without money? Practical, and I mean practical, like an accountant doing pro bono, marketing teams doing pro bono. How do you get that into reality? And I think that is something that is missing in this city, and it's such a shame because there are so many brilliant people. I mean, I'm not just talking about the younger people, which are amazing, but from across the whole sector of our communities. And I feel like we're actually holding this city back from really being what it could be, which is a hub of independent businesses.
That's such a good point, and I think that you know, Oxford has a lot of problems around inequality, and yeah, creating a more kind of equitable space, just, you know, not just equal but an equitable space as well for starting a business, getting funding, and all those other elements of running a business as well. I think that's a really great point, and I think it's a really good place to kind of maybe we can have a kind of jumping off session from that in the future, but it'd be really good to kind of follow up on that and think about, you know, how could this space, how could we as you know, people in the kind of business support community work towards a more equitable space. Yeah, absolutely, brilliant. I'm just conscious of time. If anybody's got any further questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I will also send out a follow-up email after this, so I'll send a link to the recording, a list of upcoming events on the Escalate programme as well, and hopefully that will also give you a chance to ask any questions. So if anything springs to mind following the session, please do get in touch with me. But yeah, I think we might leave it there. If any panelists or Jane would like to say anything before we leave, feel free to speak now. Otherwise,
well, I guess happy International Women's Day. And I think when we were all coming into the room, I noticed that there was one man in the session, and I kind of feel like, you know, to spread, to increase diversity in not just gender, we just need more allies, more support from our counterparts. And, you know, this event is for, like, you know, International Women's Day panel, but, you know, anybody can come to it. So I kind of feel like, spread the word to like your counterparts and be like, hey, come support women and these female entrepreneurs in their journey. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That's been, it has been really, really inspiring and great to hear your journeys and your experiences and kind of tips and insights into your funding journeys. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining and listening to our panel today. And I will be in touch. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Rosie. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.